Good. And just to confirm, I'll be going through the typical training that I would go through for teachers.
Yep.
So is that still okay?
Yep, that sounds great.
Perfect.
And you're all set.
Awesome. Thank you. I wonder if I do have the capability. So just give me 1 second. I'm a
Yeah, no
little
problem.
new to Google Meets, so just gonna share my screen here. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Okay. And can you see my screen? I think I'm sharing it.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. And so you're saying welcome on your screen right now?
Yep, welcome to Greenville
Okay.
District.
Perfect, thank you. So I'll go ahead and we'll get started. For those of you who haven't heard of Prodigy Education, we are a supplemental math tool loved by over 50 million students and about 2 million teachers across 180,000 schools in the US. And we'll dive into that deeply shortly. To start, any teachers that are on right now, you can log into your account and maybe follow through when we go into the demo environment. But love for you to say hello. Feel free to unmute to ask your questions at any point. And like Stephanie mentioned, this is being recorded, so don't worry about taking too many notes since you'll get the recording. And in terms of your team that's going to be supporting you here at Prodigy, so my name is Nisha. I'm a school and success manager. I work to support schools and districts across the US in using Prodigy with a little bit of more intent. And Lisa is our teacher success specialist. She helps with answering teachers' questions, and usually she's running these training sessions, and she's really there to help guide teachers with best use cases and practices for their specific scenarios and incorporating Prodigy in their classrooms. All right, so in terms of our agenda today, so you'll walk away from today's session with more knowledge about the basics of Prodigy and how Prodigy helps students discover the joy of learning with our game-based platform. We'll make sure everyone leaves fully confident in your ability to set up a classroom and getting students ready to play. And we'll also go over, and most of our time will be spent in the teacher dashboard, showing you how you can align specific content to the needs of your student, and how to review their activity within your reports to continue supporting them throughout the school year. So to start, our mission at Prodigy is sounds simple, but there's a lot that goes into it. We're here to help every student in the world to love learning. We believe that every child in the world, regardless of what zip code they're born into, can succeed. And we act on that belief by reimagining learning, a world where every child loves to learn and where all have equitable access to highly personalized content. And we do that in a couple of ways. We have a game that students play online, and it's accessible to them at any time, but it's deeply engaging for students. It elevates their confidence through adaptive play, and it helps foster a growth mindset for our students as well. At the same time, it's super easy for teachers, parents, and admins to use for differentiation, motivation, intervention, and rewards as well. And in terms of what we help try to focus on here, I'm just going to address a few common challenges that we've heard about from our teachers that are on Prodigy and how we solve those here through our platform. So to start, one common challenge that we hear a lot about is being able to offer differentiation for all students, and how planning for that is fairly time consuming. So Prodigy helps solve for that, and I'll show you how. We also hear a lot about lagging student data. So we're happy to share that Prodigy shares live data feedback to our teachers. So as students log in and play, they see the dashboard change live. And then, of course, we hear a lot about negative attitudes towards math. And we do realize that math anxiety is a real concern. You may hear students saying this, and I sometimes say it as well, like I'm not a math person or I'm not good at math. And with Prodigy, we really do try to foster that growth mindset when they're when students are in Prodigy, we encourage that they answer their questions to the best of their ability, because the adaptiveness of the game will help provide them with practice in the areas they need the most, and at the same time provide them with challenging enough questions in areas that they are doing really well in. So really motivating them at the same time for their hard work and effort that they're putting into answering math questions as well. And I'll show you what that looks like when we take a look at the student experience. But just in terms of how we address some of these challenges. So we keep students engaged through the gameplay itself. At the same time, they're going through adaptive learning. All the questions students will be answering will always be curriculum standard aligned. And then teachers can take all of the data that they see in their dashboard and take next steps to offer differentiation and help foster some of that growth mindset that we were talking about. So what I'm going to do next is, just in case you haven't seen your students play Prodigy, I just want to share with you what the student experience looks like. So just so you know, your students will participate in math battles, and each math battle consists of about 3 to 5 questions. And I'll give you an example of what that looks like. So when a student logs in, this is their landing page. They'll always have this new teacher window where they can update their new teacher year over year. And I'll talk to you more about that when we get into the teacher dashboard. And then next, they'll be asked if they're playing from school or if they're playing from home. When students are logged into Prodigy between 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., it's automatically considered school time, and then at home time is considered from 4 p.m. onwards. But the great thing about this is that during school time, some of the social features will be turned off to prevent distraction. And then at the same time, when students log in, they go into like a world in Prodigy. Right now, this is a world that the student has landed in. There aren't any friends or peers online, but there will always be these Prodigy pets or creatures that are floating around, and they'll engage with the students in math battles to keep the focus on math. So they're going to engage in a math battle now, and first the student will select the spell they'd like to cast, and then they're presented with their first question of this battle. There's this hint bubble, which helps explain the question a little bit further for the students, just in case they need that help. And then there are virtual manipulatives on the right-hand side as well, which help the students in answering the question. So you have your crayons, but also students will have counters, coins, blocks, and fractions. And then in some of the tougher questions or the upper grade level questions, students will also have access to a calculator, which will show up randomly on the side here as well. The top left-hand corner here, you're seeing a read out loud. This is our text-to-speech button. So if students are younger, still learning how to read, or maybe ELL, these questions will be read out loud for them, as well as the hint in the hint bubble as well. So now they answer the question correct, so they get to attack their opponent. There's no real violence. The health bar kind of just goes down, and the opponent gets to attack back to keep it fun and engaging at the same time. And the students now moving on to their second question of the battle. Again, they get to attack their opponent, and the opponent gets to attack back. And then something special is going to happen for the student next when they move on to their next question. So this specific scenario, this student has 3 questions in their battle. So this is the last question, and once they answer it correctly, they've actually mastered the skill of 2D shapes. And so the student has earned a badge in this skill for their account, and they get to completely defeat their opponent. Again, the opponent will kind of just run away, no real violence there. But what the student will see is they'll continue, oh, I'm sorry about that. Oh no. They'll continue to see their hard work being rewarded with gold coins and items for their character, like fancy wands or hats, and more items from their treasure box as well. We really just want to motivate our students and reward them for their hard work that they've put in. And again, that's helping with that growth mindset that we were just talking about. Are there any questions about the student experience, maybe things that you've seen on your end that you're curious about? Okay.
Doesn't seem like it, but thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. But there is one question that we're frequently asked by teachers, and so I'm going to preemptively answer that question for you there. Often we're asked how much time on Prodigy will lead to results, and so we do have an answer for that. We recently partnered with Johns Hopkins University to conduct a mixed method study with a district in Texas, and what that district saw was an increase in achievement at their end of year standardized exam. So they saw a 5-point gain on their end of year exam out of 34 points on their scale. So a 14% increase when students were on Prodigy for about 60 minutes per week. The 60 minutes per week results in about 120 questions being answered on a weekly basis. So you're seeing at least 120 questions being answered within 60 minutes. And so we do recommend that students use Prodigy for about 10 to 15 minutes per day to see that achievement and that increase in their end of year exam, especially. Okay. So with that said, I am gonna dive into the teacher dashboard here and just walk you through that in detail. So I'll start by logging in. Most of you should have your account set up, but in the case that you need help with your account, just let me know and I can help with getting your account set up for you. So just bear with me one moment here and I'll log into a teacher account. It's circling for me, sorry about that. Okay. Sorry, I just need one more moment here. I'm not sure why it's not letting me log in. I'm really sorry about that. I got booted out. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here again. Perfect. So I just logged into a teacher account. Again, let me know if you have any questions about your account and logging in. But this is what your landing page will look like when you log into your teacher dashboard. You'll have your classrooms here on the left-hand side and just helpful tips in the middle of the screen here. Each classroom has a class code, and this is what students can use to connect to your classroom. So if I were to just click in Class Prodigy, this specific classroom, and go to the student section, this is the class code that I'm referring to. So you can copy this and send this out to your students to get them to connect to your dashboard. And once they do, you'll see them listed here below with their user information. And if a student is not in the classroom student section here, then that means they're not connected to your classroom. So just leverage this here at the top. If students need help with logging in to their accounts, you can click on View Login Info here. And their information will show up here, so you can cut out these cards in a regular classroom environment and hand this out to your students, or screenshot these and send them via email. And then through the student section as well is where you can communicate with parents. So if you were to click on get parent letters, and I'll just go to the English ones, a new tab will also open up, and with this new tab you'll see a page per student. So for our student Bob, we can give this sheet to their parent with their login information, as well as how parents can log in to support their child at home. And you'll have a page that you can send out per student as well. But going back home, this is again where our classrooms are set up, and this is where you'll be able to create different classrooms, so either per class, or you might want to create a classroom for a group of students that need support or mediation, so that can be your small group that you're creating a classroom for. It's really up to you how you would like to leverage these classrooms. But you also have the option of inviting a co-teacher to your classroom. So you might have a lab coach or a resource coach or a math coach, and you can invite them to your classrooms by clicking on co-teaching and then hitting add co-teacher, and you can put their email address in and invite them to your classroom. What that invited teacher will see is all of your students, their reports, and the assessments that they're working on, and this will help give them better insight in case we have some co-teachers. I am going to go into this class Prodigy here, and this is the dashboard for this classroom. So I'll just talk a little bit more about this. So our dashboard gives you a few widgets with some real-time data. And the first widget at the top of the screen here is your questions answered this week, so your usage report. And this is just showing you with the blue line how many questions are being answered at school and how many questions are being answered at home. If I click on View Report, and I scroll a little further down and expand on any given day, I'll see exactly who's logging in to answer those questions, and if they're answering those questions during home time or during school time. So you might have students that are keeners and are going home and using Prodigy a lot. And in that case, what we can do is target those students with the high usage to ensure they're getting practice in the areas that need the most. From your usage report, you also have access to another premium feature called Focus Mode. Before I talk about Focus Mode, I'm going to go back to the student experience to show you another world that students can access. So I'll just log in here as a student, and as I'm doing that, I'll just explain a couple things. There's another mode in Prodigy called Tower Town. And when students log in and go to Tower Town, what they're doing is a town pretty much represents a whole grade in the student's curriculum. And within this town, students are building their towers. Each tower represents a set of skills or an entire standard. And within each tower, what students are doing is they're just building their floors. So to build a floor, students need to answer at least 10 questions correct, and then they get to build their floor. So I'll show you exactly what that looks like. This is me, my little character. I'm going directly to Tower Town right now. I don't have the option of choosing different worlds. And when I go to Tower Town, this is kind of what it looks like. So these are the floors that I've built. I've answered questions correct per floor. And what you'll see is there's no real battling going on here. All I'm doing is just answering questions to build my floor. So if I were to, I think, so I'm not the greatest at math, but there we go. So then I get to continue adding blocks to my floor. And with that, again, no battling, no back and forth, no finding friends in different worlds. So what this will do is increase time on task, and you'll see at least 2 times more questions being answered when students are in Tower Town. And the reason why I'm showing you this now is because on your teacher side, what you can do is turn on focus mode. What focus mode will do is when you turn it on, it'll turn on for 1 hour from the time that you turn it on. And it'll direct students just like it did to me. straight to Tower Town, and you'll see again an increase on time on task and at least 2 times more questions being answered and a lot more skills being mastered at the same time as well, since students have to answer questions correct to build their scores. So with focus mode, if you have any assessments going on, or if you know you have a scheduled math block or a scheduled Prodigy time, you can turn on focus mode. It'll send your students directly to Tower Town, and you'll see a lot more data coming into your teacher dashboard with that. And just to clarify, students can access Tower Town at any time through the world map. Just when you have focus mode turned on, that's the only area in Prodigy that they'll go to. All of the other worlds will be grayed out for the student, and that's again to help increase some time on task. Are there any questions about this usage report or our focus mode feature here? Okay. If there aren't any questions, I'll quickly move back on to our dashboard. So we have a leaderboard here, which is going to move in real time as well. And teachers use this leaderboard to incentivize their students. The top 3 students could get more Prodigy time or maybe other incentives going on in the classroom. But you're looking at your top students here who've answered the most questions correct out of the total questions answered. And at the bottom of the page, you also have your weekly skills activity. And this report is showing you how your students are performing on a skill by skill basis. So because this is a demo account, we only really have 3 students playing on Prodigy. But if we expand on any given skill, what you'll see is how students are grouped together. So all 3 students who encounter the skill of missing value in a multiplication sentence are doing really well in this area. But you might have some students or an individual student that is struggling in a certain skill. And so what we can do is target Sarah to make sure she's getting more practice in finding dimensions of a shape in a given area or parameter. And I'll show you exactly how to do that. But this is a really good indication of how, again, your students are performing together on a skill by skill basis. And I'll go back to the dashboard. The last widget that I'll talk to you about is placement test widget, and I'm going to spend some time on this here. The placement test, when you hover over it, you'll get some initial data, but there's 3 different scenarios when a student will go through this placement test or our diagnostic assessment. And the first scenario is when a student logs into a brand new Prodigy account and they're starting their Prodigy journey. The first set of questions that they're going to get are from this placement test. What will happen is they'll get placed out at a grade level of understanding math. So if I click on view report, what I'm seeing first is this is a 3rd grade class. And I have an overall placement of 3 students who have finished the placement test. And 1 student here, if I hover over the bubbles, Sarah, was placed out at the 2nd grade level, so just below grade level. And 2 students here got placed out at grade level, at the 3rd grade level here. So again, an overall placement of your students' comprehension towards math and what their current grade level or understanding is of math at this time. Below your overall placement, all students will also be placed out per domain. And so what you're seeing here is there's 6 students that are placed out, but there's only 3 students at the top. So this is giving you an indication that students are placing out slowly in each domain. Once they've encountered all the domains, they'll be at the overall placement. And once they're done, they'll be in the overall placement as well. But this domain placement is very important because this is where the adaptiveness of the game kind of kicks in. So for example, Sarah here struggled a little bit with measurement and data. So now the game's going to continue to adapt from here to keep Sarah in her zone of proximal development and provide her questions in this area. 1 grade level below or at the 2nd grade level, and then start challenging her at the 3rd grade level to move her out of that zone. And then, for example, Colby here is doing really well with geometry, so he's going to continue to receive challenging enough questions to keep him engaged in geometry at his level. So this is again where the adaptiveness kind of kicks in, and this is how we keep students in their zone of proximal development. And the other way that we do that is by auto-administering this placement test twice every school year. So at the beginning of every school year, this says July, but August, students will go through the placement test again. And then mid-school year, so every January, students go through the placement test again. And again, we auto-administer these placement tests, so teachers don't have to do anything to get this placement test set up. But if we were to, for example, take a look at Kyle here, who placed out at the first grade level in measurement and data, I can take a look at Kyle's specific report. We also have below just overall progress of how students have paced through the placement test, if they've completed it or if they're in progress. But to take a look at Kyle's specific report, I would click on detailed breakdown at the top, and then I would look for Kyle's name and hit view report. And now what I'm seeing is all of the domains that Kyle was assessed on and the results for all of those domains. If I expand on any given domain for a grade level, I'll see specifically which questions were asked and which the student answered correctly and which they answered incorrect. So giving a really good deep understanding of the questions that the students received during the placement test. Are there any questions about the placement test, the algorithm behind it, and the reports that come along with it as well? Okay. I do recommend this is really the best place to start for teachers, especially at the start of the school year. Take a look to see where students are doing well together and where gaps might be forming, and then this can help you to inform your next steps as well. So I do recommend that you start with the placement test. And one thing that I'll point out is on average, it takes students about 3 weeks to finish this placement test because they're going through all of the content, through all of the domains. And because this test is adaptive, some students might take just a little bit longer to finish it and some might finish it sooner. And then for that reason, I'll also explain how long the placement test is running for. So the first placement test in August, students will have until the end of December to finish that placement test, so that whole term. And then students will have the second placement test from January to the end of July to finish that second one. And the reason why we allot enough time is just in case teachers have assessments running, students will, this placement test will be put on pause until students finish those assessments. And once those assessments are complete, students will come back to finishing this placement test. So we make sure that there's enough time to finish this test by giving them the whole term to finish it. So that's your dashboard at a glance and some of the reports that come along with the widgets here. And then we did already touch on our student section where you can manage your student roster, remove any students that might have duplicate accounts or maybe not a part of your classroom anymore. If you do this, you won't delete accounts. It'll just remove it from your view. So you can easily do that. But next, what I'll touch on is assessments, and this is the real meat and potatoes of how teachers get to control the back end of Prodigy and manipulate some of the content that students are receiving. So the first thing that you would do is click on the Create button here, and there's 3 different assessments that we offer. So assessments is really all about aligning Prodigy to what's happening in the classroom, and there's 3 different assessments, but 2 tiers of intervention that we offer. So the first tier of intervention is collecting data on our entire class, and that can be done through plans. So with the plan, you can choose up to 3 full standards that you would like to assess your entire class on. And I'll show you exactly how to get that set up. So I'm going to go ahead and click continue. And right now I'm taking a look at all standards, but if I were to filter it by domain, so for example, geometry, I can select both of these standards if I wish, but for the sake of this example, I'll just choose one. And then I'll go ahead and click next. I usually just take the verbiage to title my plan, but you can use whatever convention works best for you. I'm going to go ahead and click next. And all I'm doing now is selecting a date range for when I would like this plan to run. So I'll just select the next week here. I'll go ahead and click create. And based on the date range that I've selected, it'll take about 50 minutes or about 10 minutes per day for students to finish this plan. This plan is a formative assessment, so it's going to adapt for our students. If students are struggling with some of the skills within this chosen plan, it'll drop them to prerequisites to help them build on that foundation and then continue moving them forward as they continue to proceed. You can click on this to delete the plan, edit the date range, or view the report. There will be no data in here since it's set in the future, but if I go a little bit back in time, I'll show you what a completed report looks like. So I'll just click on the report. And what I'm seeing here is, again, you have a much larger list, but the standard that was chosen for our entire class to work through and the average score for our entire class, and then a student by student breakdown as well. So Matt did really well, got 100% in this standard. If I expand on his name, this is the skill that he was assessed on mainly. And 5 questions came out of this standard format. But if I expand on Sarah's name, it looks like she struggled a little bit when it came to identifying quadrilaterals. So she was assessed on similar skills to help build on that foundation. And these skills were probably provided at a grade level below, and then moved her forward to assess how she's doing. But because she struggled there, she did get a little bit more practice in those areas. And what you're seeing here is time on task. So time specifically spent on answering questions in that screen where the math question comes up. It's not time spent exploring different worlds and finding their friends. Any questions about the standard that we just put in, which is a plan, and the report that comes along with it? Okay, thank you. Just to give you an example or give you some context, I find that teachers tend to use a plan to do a pre-assessment. So before you do your in-class lesson, just to see where students are already doing well. And then also it's used as the post-assessment as well to see if students retain knowledge from a lesson plan from a couple of weeks ago. So you can use those use cases for a plan. Also, it's just a first great step to take if you're starting a scaffolding process and want to understand where students are doing really well first. You can assess your entire classroom with a plan. The other assessment that goes out to our entire classroom is test prep. So just like the name suggests, it's really there to help students prep for standardized testing. This assessment, unlike plans, is not formative, so it's a summative assessment, and students will go through and get questions right or wrong, and it will not adapt in this assessment. So I'll just go ahead and get this set up. I'm just trying to remember what state are you all based out of? If you could just, someone could just let me know.
Ohio.
Okay, thank you. So what I'll do is I'll show you an example of Ohio test prep here, and we'll just start with the 3rd grade level. I'll go ahead and click next. This is the easiest assessment to put in, and I'll get it to start at the same time, and I'll put it in for a couple of weeks here. Click create, and based on that date range, it'll take about 5 minutes per day or about 100 minutes to complete. If that's too little time or too much time, you can always adjust the date range and maybe put it in for a week instead, and then save that edit. And now it'll take about 15 minutes per day to complete this test prep. Again, you can click on this to delete or edit the date range again or view the report. There won't be any data in here for this test prep right now because it's in the future, but I'm going to click on report here for this test prep to show you what it looks like. Once students log in and start answering questions, you'll see this fill in. But when you hover over these questions, you'll see in advance what questions your students will receive through this test prep. So you get a good understanding of that, and you'll also see exactly how many questions are being asked. So if I go back to assessments, and I'm going to, again, go a little bit back in time. to show you a completed test prep here. This is set for our Demo Florida account, so just keep that in mind. And again, we don't have all of our students logging in here because this is a demo account, but what you'll see when you hit struggling is those students will be sorted, those that struggle the most at the top and those that struggle the least at the bottom here. And you'll also see trends. So 3 out of the 4 students that answered question number 2 got question number 2 wrong. So as a teacher, you can literally take this to your chalkboard or your virtual whiteboard and work this through with your entire class because your entire class, majority of them answered this question wrong. Same thing for question number 4. And then the great thing about this report is when you scroll down, you'll get a question by question breakdown. So you'll see your students answering the questions and also the answer that they provided. So we can sit down with Sarah to get an understanding of why she thought that 2 over 3 was equals to versus greater than 1 over 3. Like I said, test prep is summative, so it's either correct or incorrect, and what you'll see is these results here per question, and you're not seeing an average score. But at the same time, our test prep assessment is very much correlated to the results that you'll get in the NWA MAP assessment as well. So if you're looking for a benchmarking tool, it's a great way of leveraging your benchmarking or use this assessment to benchmark your students. And it's also great because it goes out for your entire class to work through. So it's a great way of assessing your entire class again. And the only other assessment that's left to set up is an assignment. And this is where we get to target specific skills and individual or group of students with those specific skills. So this is your second tier of intervention, and you really get to control a lot of the questions that are going out to the students. So I'll show you how to get this assignment set up. Again, this is all based on our account creation. You'll see your topics here listed. And the great thing about this is that you can actually expand on a topic and select skills that may not fall under the same topic or even standard. So you can actually select a bunch of skills here. For the sake of this example, I'm going to just select a few. And again, you can hover over this eye here to see sample questions that students will receive. And I'm going to go ahead and click next. And this is where teachers get to control how many questions students are answering. So if you know that students really needed practice in sorting quadrilaterals, you can up the number of questions here and get them to answer or practice more. Just know you can ask a total of 50 questions in each assignment. And then when I click next, this is where the differentiation piece comes into place. So we can absolutely put this assignment in for our entire class to work through because we just targeted specific skills. Or I can deselect my students and target that one individual student that might need practice, or a group of students that have been grouped together needing practice in the skills that we just selected in the previous screen. And then I'll click next here again, and I'll have this assignment run for about 4 days. I'll click create. And our assignment is in for those handful of students to practice. If I click on the report for this assignment, assignments are also summative, so the reporting will be completely identical to the reporting for test prep. You'll see students log in and answer questions here. You'll see the questions that they'll get in advance. And once they log in and answer questions, you'll see what answer they actually provided as well. So just going back to assessments, we set up all 3 assessments here. Our plan that goes out to our entire class and is adaptive. Our test prep, which also goes out to our entire class, but it's summative, so it will not adapt. And our assignment, which targets specific specific skills and individual or group of students. And an assignment will also not adapt. It will be a summative assessment. Are there any questions about the 3 different assessments that we just put in here? No? Okay. Thank you. I will say I overlap these assessments on purpose because there is an order of priority which students will receive content. So for example, here, December 15th, when students log in, there's 3 different assessments running. So test prep will always be given first priority. This is the content that they'll get first. Second priority will be given to assignments. And if they finish both assessments and this plan is still running, then students will move on to finishing content in this plan. If they finish all 3 assessments and nothing else is going on, they'll revert back to completing that placement test we were talking about. And if the placement test is already complete, then they just go back to regular adaptive gameplay. I'm also going to go a little bit into the future here in January to show you that this blue placement test bar will automatically show up in our assessments tool. It's in here for about 3 weeks, but again, students have the entire term to finish the placement test, but it's just letting you know that the placement test has started and this is when it started. So you'll see it every August and every January in your assessments tool. Okay. That's your assessments. And again, the real meat and potatoes of how you get to control and manipulate the back end for your kiddos. Keep in mind, just like test prep, these assessments are all in stealth mode. Students will never know that they're being assessed. They just go through and play a regular game and answer questions, but they're actually answering questions from this content that we've put in. And with that, you'll get honest and genuine answers since there's no real pressure on your students about assessments. And the last thing I'll touch on is reports, and I'm going to very quickly just highlight 3 reports that are very helpful. Your student comprehension report is the first one here. It's a holistic view on a student-by-student basis in terms of all the content that they're receiving in Prodigy. So if I click on view report, I can choose an individual student. So let's target Sarah here. And then I can select a custom date range if I wish, or select the last 90 days. And now what I'm seeing is all of the content that Sarah received, regardless of where it came from, but this is all of it here listed holistically for you. And you get a better understanding of where gaps are forming for individual students. You'll see specific skills as well. And so this is a skill that we can put in for Sarah to practice a little bit further since she's struggling a little bit with it. But again, this is a holistic view. All the content that your students are receiving, again, regardless of where it came from. And the other 2 reports that I want to highlight is your topic coverage and curriculum coverage. So topic coverage goes hand in hand with creating that targeted assignment. You get to target skills in individual students or groups of students. So topic coverage will list all of the topics here just the way they're listed in when you're creating an assignment. You'll have caution signs beside where students are struggling a little bit. So addition to 1,000. You'll have this red bar here, and we're seeing that there are about 8, 9 students that are struggling in this specific area. And now what I can do is actually target these students here. So to show you an example, I'll go back to assessments, click create, and click assignments. We were looking at the second topic here. And we were looking at the first skill within that topic. So that's literally how we saw it in the topic coverage report. I'm gonna go ahead and click next. I'll get them to practice this a little bit more. And this was for the 8 students that were listed there. So I think it was Shakiba, Tarir, Tom, and the other 8 students. I think you get the picture. But with that, we can go ahead and target those specific students with the help of our topic coverage report. Going back to reports, the other report that I like to cover is curriculum coverage, and this helps to give you a drill down from top down. So first you'll see all of your domains here. If you expand on a domain, you'll see the standards within each domain. And then if you expand on your standards, you'll see all of the skills that students are practicing and how students are performing together in each skill as well. So if you notice that a lot of students were struggling with this skill or this standard, sorry, you can actually put this in as a plan for your entire class to work through. But if you want to offer that second tier of intervention, you can provide a assignment for Shakiba and Tarir to practice identifying quadrilaterals. And those were the 3 reports that I wanted to very quickly highlight. The rest of the reports we've kind of gone over and are very similar in the reports and the data that you're receiving. So I'll just leave that at that. But are there any final questions that I can help to answer at this time?
I have a question. It might be a local question though, so I should ask it too. But I have a student that I know finished a placement test because I saw his placement last week.
Okay.
And now it's no longer there, and it says he doesn't have any data. And like I said, I wonder, it might be a local thing. I need to just check with my colleagues here on if there's something I did wrong or if there's something else going on.
Yeah, the first thing that I would ask is if that student is still connected to your classroom. If they aren't connected anymore to your classroom, then you don't see any of that data anymore.
He's still connected. He's there.
Still connected? Okay. And then when you go into your placement test and click on View Report and hit Detailed Breakdown, can you find that student's name in the list here?
Yes.
Okay, so if you can still pull that report for that individual student, so for example, if I go to Sarah and click on View Report, I'm seeing the overall placement at the top here of how the student was placed out and placement per domain as well.
Yeah, for this one, it just says, oops, there's no student data.
Okay, if you can, there is a chat function here. If you could maybe send me that student's username, if you don't mind, just a username, and I can take a look from the back end if there's anything funky going on.
I'll gladly do that. One thing though is,
Sure.
doesn't matter if this student is connected to several different classes in Prodigy, because he's with a classroom teacher that is going to participate in this Prodigy tournament. And then my class is a club that happens after school. And it made me wonder, what if
Okay.
2 teachers have connected the same kid at the same time? What does that mean? Anything?
Yeah, so students can connect to multiple teachers at a time. And so one thing that you could double check on the other teacher's end is if they have that student on a grade override by any chance. So if you were to go to the student section here and click on edit beside, and you won't see this on your end, the teacher might have a grade override on their teacher dashboard, but you might see that right now on your side, your student might not be on a grade override. That teacher might have them on a grade override. This prevents adaptiveness and thus prevents them from going through that placement test. So this could be a reason why they may not be showing up on your placement test results. But if you are sharing students, I would recommend leveraging co-teaching, because with that, a student will be connected to really just one classroom, but you're connected as a second teacher to that classroom, and then you can take a look to see all the reports and assessments as well. And that helps lessen some of the confusion of multiple assessments going on in 2 different classrooms, and what content is the student receiving first from your classroom or the other teacher's classroom. So maybe a solution to that could be co-teaching.
Okay, you probably just explained what happened. That's my guess, and I'll get with the other teacher.
Okay, no problem. I'll also just in the chat here, I'll throw my email address in here. So if you like to, sorry, one second, prodigygame.com. Yes, there you go. So you can always reach out to me with your specific questions, and I'm happy to spend additional time with you to get that sorted out. Awesome. Any other questions that I can help to answer? Oops, sorry. So what I'll do next is I'll just share this screen here with my email address again. In case any teachers have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'm happy to help you out. And I hope this was helpful. Please let me know if you do have any questions or feedback. And if there's anything else that I can help with, again, please reach out to me. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.
Awesome.